This is an important announcement for anyone who wants to advertise here on Everyone Loves Guitar. Over the last 9 months alone, we've had 425,000 more downloads, added over 25,000 monthly listens, and grown our YouTube subscriber base by 72 times. During this time, we've kept our advertising rates consistent, but we will be increasing rates on January 1st. So if you're a business looking to generate new leads or increase your cash flow by picking up new clients or customers, or if you're a label looking to promote new music, then listen up. For information on advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, fill in the short form at everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Again, that's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Even if you want to advertise next year, you'll get to lock into marketing your product or service at the current rates before rates go up at the end of this year. You know, much of your success as an online business, especially with guitars, will depend on your domain name. The owner of 2 great guitar domain names has contacted me, and he has them for sale. Those 2 domain names are guitarbuyers.com and cashforguitars.com. Call or email them at the contact information listed on that page, and they will give you 20% off the purchase price. In addition, they'll work with you to make payments if that's what you need. Again, that's guitarbuyers.com and cashforguitars.com. If you want to buy or sell a home or investment property and you're here in the Tampa Bay area, in Hillsborough, Pinellas, or Pasco counties, then listen up. West Florida Real Estate is a local residential real estate broker that's helped over 250 Bay Area homeowners buy and sell their properties in the last 4 years alone. If you're looking to sell, you'll want to get their free report, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Homeowners Make When Hiring a Realtor. And if you're looking to buy a property, you definitely want to get your hands on the 21 Most Expensive Mistakes Tampa Home Buyers Make When Buying a Home. Each one of these reports is going to save you time and money. Inside, you'll discover the 7 most important things to consider when hiring a realtor, what to do if you're buying and selling a home at the same time, and the danger of choosing a realtor who agrees with everything you say. To get your hands on these free reports, head on over to westfloridarealestate.com. That's westfloridarealestate.com. Hey, this is Craig. If you like this show and you want to support it and you want to keep it free, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/support. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I've got a really cool guest today with Chris Masterson. And if you don't know Chris, I'll tell you about him. But, man, I would really encourage you and really like you to go check him out after the interview, or pause the interview and go listen to him. He's got a beautiful tone. He's really unique tone, and it's very identifiable with him, and he does what he does really, really well. So I think you're going to enjoy this. And a couple of quick announcements. Number one, Eugene Edwards, thank you very much for connecting us. I really appreciate that. And secondly, don't forget, you can now watch these on YouTube in addition to listening to them wherever the podcasts are aired. And also, Jimmy Page, Santana, Jeff Beck, and Joe Walsh. If you know those guys, I want to get them on my show. Love the hookup. Thank you. All righty. Chris Masterson. Born in Louisiana, grew up in Houston, saw loads of great shows like Albert Collins, B.B. King, and Clarence Gatemouth Brown, as well as a bunch of others. And he was on stage performing at a very young age himself. We were just talking. He told me he played with Derek Trucks for the first time when the two of them were kids when they were around 14. Chris has toured, that was 20 years ago. Chris has toured or recorded. Chris has toured or recorded with Steve Earle, Jack Ingram, Sun Volt, Shooter Jennings, Amy and Levon Helm, Ola Bell, Bobby Bear, Jr. and Sr., Allison Moore, Dee Dee Gutman from the Brazilian Girls, Hank Williams III, Serena Ryder, Reckless Kelly, Tanya Tucker, and he just made Tanya's record, and loads of other people. Him and his wife are currently on tour with Steve Earle and the Dukes. As I said, he plays alongside his wife, Eleanor Whitmore, who's a multi-instrumentalist at violin, keys, tenor guitar, mandolin. They've toured and recorded with Steve for the past decade. We're going to talk about that because I find that really great. You know, most people can't even get along, and they're like, you know, I'm home from work. Hey, honey, and I'll see you for 3 hours. And they're like killing each other. You guys are like 24/7. That's impressive. The two of them, Eleanor and Chris, are in a band called the Mastersons. They have 3 albums out and a 4th on the way. They are recording it in LA this coming fall with shooter Jennings. I hate to do this, but if I had to classify the Mastersons, and Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong here. Since I'm old, I'll call them California rock, but nowadays it'd probably be Americana or alternative country. Is that like, to fix that if I'm wrong?
Yeah, no, that's a close enough elevator pitch kind of thing. I mean, Shooter heard this pile of songs we're working on. He's like, I get it. It's, Graham Parsons meets Pet Sounds.
That's pretty good. But
I always tell people, like, Eleanor and I both grew up in the South. I was born in Louisiana, like you said, in Illinois and Texas. And there's something that happens, obviously, that we learned both, in Texas. I always tell people I'm into Ray Price and Ray Davies equally.
That's a good one, man. You are actually, now that you said that, I could easily see you the way you're, you've got that kind of Kinks, I don't want to say easygoing vibe when you play, man, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's an amalgam of things. I mean,
well, let's get into it. You moved from Houston out to LA at 18. What prompted you to do that?
So, growing up in Houston, there's obviously just such a fertile music scene. Austin gets so much credit, but if you think of, going back to the Duke Peacock label of Bobby Blue Bland and T-Bone Walker, and, there's all this stuff, so when I was young, there was, I met Johnny Winter when I was 8 years old. When your parents have an albino kid in Texas, I guess they take you to see Johnny Winter. It just like, they got white hair. We should go to a Johnny Winter's. No, but so I saw that from, a young age, just sitting in front of his 2 amps, watching him just fucking rip. And, and then at the time saw like Edgar playing with Leon Russell. And my mom would take me to folk gigs, and there were blues jams around town, and you'd see, Johnny Clyde Copeland and Jimmy T99 Nelson, who was a shouter like Big Joe Turner, like, did everything in the key of C, and Pete Mays, Joe Guitar Hughes, Big Walter Price. I mentioned my dad used to take me over to his house, and he'd sit at his piano and have me play guitar and tell me to slow down or speed up or no, watch my left hand or just, and God, I mean, talk about an education. I did take from I was about 8 when I could get my hand around a guitar neck, but from an early age, I took some lessons, but getting to go see all this stuff around town was, what shaped me, in the player I am.
Hold on a second. Was your dad was a musician too, or because your parents?
My dad was a hobbyist, and he would have called himself that too. I mean, he played guitar, so guitars were always around the house. He kind of did play the same, a couple Merle Haggard songs. He'd play Wildwood Flower. He had the same. He had a very limited repertoire, but it definitely was an early influence. And his harmony stratotone with flat wound 13s on it was my first guitar. And
wow,
I got that thing. I was like, why can't I bend the notes like I hear?
Do you still have that guitar? That's like
I absolutely do.
That's next on my list to buy as a Strat. I love those.
It's one. Yeah, I think there's a picture of it on my Instagram. I had it out the other day, but I still have really heavy flats on it.
That's funny,
which
man.
I love now. But so yeah, growing up in Houston, like it was, I don't know, around 15, I had a little blues band, and we were just doing, kind of the tough gigs, 3 sets a night, and I was playing all around town and around the Gulf Coast. We'd go do regional things and go to Galveston and go to Surfside and Corpus and Dallas, and then there just came a time where I felt there wasn't I needed a change, and it was also I was 16 when my mom signed me out of high school. So
what does that mean?
Well, you have to be 17 to drop out on your own accord. And I wanted out before I was 17. And I was already playing professionally. So it was crazy. I was going to so many gigs. Like I think when my sophomore year started, I missed the whole first week of school. And this is in Houston. Yeah, so I was in Austin. I remember Buddy Guy was playing at the Austin Opera House, and I wanted to see that gig. And I had a couple other things in Austin. So, my parents just sort of allowed me to miss a lot of school. And I wasn't a bad kid. I was one of those kids that always, would do better if I just applied myself.
Sure.
But I was applying myself musically. And so about 6 weeks into my sophomore year, my mom signed me out of school.
Wow.
And,
did they do that because they were supportive of your music career, or were they hippies, or both, or?
No, they weren't hippies. They're awesome. They were 100% supportive.
So, wow, what a sign of love, man.
But my dad almost took it. My dad was, he just was like, well, you're playing professionally. So if you want to quit school, you can pay a fourth of our expenses. No, but it was great.
Man, I'm laughing because I'd be doing what your dad's doing, man. I've done shit like that with all three of my kids.
I actually we had this guitar tech out with Steve who was still paying for both of his kids way in their 20s, and I was just
in their 20s.
Well, and I didn't, it's not for me to judge, but I kind of said, well, here's what my dad did, and I'm sure my dad was lenient. I mean, if I was saving money to do something else, it wasn't to the penny or anything, but he's just like, look, if you want to quit school to play music, pay your way. And I basically did. Yeah.
So there was, you had another brother or sister?
I had a younger brother, or I have a younger brother. Yeah. And I have a sister out here.
Wow. That is really cool that your parents did that.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it's funny, it shaped, Eleanor and I are both 42, so we see how sort of millennials act, and we see what we do, and when we're both touring musicians, so we'll drop money on expensive gear, or big sushi dinners. You do but there's also a part of us that's really fiscally responsible. As self-employed people, you might have a good year, but you kind of have to squirrel away for that bad year,
because it's going to happen.
That's inevitable. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's for anybody I've been self-employed 21 years. That's all my buddies. It happens to all of us. There's never it doesn't infinitely increase, man. It's always
right.
You got
but a lot of musicians and artists, how many big time artists that have had tax problems, or had to, put the band back together to go, tour to, pay off the IRS or alimony or.
No. And that's why I did that to my kids. And that's why I bet your dad did that to you. He's like, hey man, I want to help you. I want you to be fully functional, independent on your own. I'm not looking at, this isn't punitive. It's called, I want to, I want to help develop you into a functional adult.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so anyhow, but getting back to the Houston thing. So I'm out playing gigs and I sports bars, and, the gigs that, nowadays are, a lot of people, I guess some would be grateful to have, but others would be like, man, 4 sets, that's a long gigs.
They are.
But I was at a point where I was starting to get some offers to travel, and my band at the time just had obligations and life stuff where it wasn't happening. And then my friend, who's a great guitar player named Rick Holmstrom.
Yeah, I had Rick on the show. Oh my God. Okay. Rick and you. Yeah. Oh my God.
Okay. So Rick is one of my favorites, and and at the time, this is, pre-internet, and, he was, I knew records that he played on, and I'd see him when he'd come to Houston and sit in, and we were friends, and he helped me find some gigs out in Southern California, some, just more blues gigs, but I mean, he helped me come up with sort of a soft place to land out here professionally. So this is in the mid 90s. And so that's how I got out here as a pup. And Rick got me my first gig out here.
Are you guys still buddies?
Oh yeah, we were texting this morning.
That's cool. Tell him you came on the show. He has one of the best interviews I've ever done.
Oh yeah, well, and Rick came. Yeah, I haven't heard it, but I believe it. We don't see each other enough. He's on the West Side, and we're both touring like crazy.
Yeah. Hey, thank God, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we should be so lucky. We had breakfast one morning on he's out in Santa Monica, and I was bringing some guitars out to Bill Asher, who works on my guitars, and it's close to Rick. So I was like, all right, we're having breakfast, and we were both at a point where we were just really tired from the endless tour. But yes, be careful what you ask for. You might hit one of those years where the phone's not ringing. So
so he helped you
come while the sun shines.
No, man. So I hear you. So he helped you, as you said, land softly. I like that. So he got you sort of set up, or here's where you might want to think about living, or
Well, there was a club in Long Beach at the time called the Blue Cafe, and a pretty thriving scene down there. And he just found me a gig with this harmonica player, this guy called Freddie Brooks, and he was just a working guy. Had 4 and 5 gigs a week. So again, not your big glamorous gigs, but it's really easy to sort of get your 10,000 hours in if you're just playing in bars every night like that.
Yeah, very much so. Wow, that's very cool. So how did you what was your first big break, I guess, in the music business?
Wow. I don't know. I say that because I've always just thought that one thing is always led to the next. And I've always tried to treat every gig it's equally important. I don't know if I'm articulating that right. The coffee's just kicking in, but
no, it's all good. I understand what you're saying. You've never given more importance to one over the other.
Well, if you go to a 4-set bar gig, you got to treat it the same as playing at Carnegie Hall. Yeah. If you say yes to something and you deem something to be worth your time, or I need the money for this, but you should approach it the same and approach like a local songwriter just like you would if you were playing with Steve Earle or Jackson Brown, or they deserve that. And to be a good servant to the song sort of requires that, that you always be the type of band member that you would want to hire, that you would want in your band. So everything's just sort of like I came out here, I was playing with that guy Freddie, and I remember one night playing at a sports bar in Whittier, glamorous, right? Mm-hmm. But Bill Bateman was the drummer, and he was from the Blasters and had the Red Devils, and he just happened to be the guy that needed that gig that night too, and so we hit it off. So then I started getting gigs in Hollywood with him, and with the Red Devils, and that that's when I met probably Dave Alvin in that period, and that was I was in Long Beach, but that kind of connected me to folks in Hollywood. Yeah. And it wasn't a calculated scenester move. You don't go to a sports bar in Whittier to network. But if you go and you're nice and you play well and, things happen, That's how everything sort of happened for me. I don't know. It's always, every move has felt really organic.
And I've learned I would not say it, I'm in the music business, from learning from 600 guys I've spoke to in the music business at this point, right, that more than any other business, probably, it is built, if you are nice and work hard, literally the sky's the limit, because if you are nice and work hard, everybody wants to help you pretty much.
Well, look, there's another thing. It's like, you could have an A+ player that was a C hang. Yeah. And who might get the gig? It might be the B+ player that's the A+ hang.
Yeah, totally.
Like, who do you want to ride around on a bus with? Who do you want to sit in a 10-hour session with. Like, you know, who do you want to hang out with at the end of the day? You know, we go have a morning coffee or a nightcap at the end of the night. It's the A+ hang.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
it's the guy or the gal that is accommodating to you musically. It's, you know, they, as you said, serve the song. It's not about me.
no, not in an ensemble, not at all. It's but yeah, so that's, everything is just sort of, I mean, I could show how every gig has led to the next thing without, I don't want to say without trying, because I don't want to make it sound easy. I mean, you know, probably every one of the people that, you know, are cool enough to have been on your show have worked their asses off.
Yes, very much
It's not a career path for the faint of heart. But I mean, nor is anything being self-employed. I mean, any kind of freelancer.
Well, freaking life in general. I always say life is not for the weak.
No.
All right. So I want to talk, first of all, congratulations. You and your wife, you actually look happy together. You know, you could sort of look at somebody. No, but you could see, like, when people, you know, like when you guys are looking at each other, you look like, you know, there's love and just happiness behind, you know, you could see couples that look at each other and it's like,
Right.
you know, bitch, don't bother me. You know, I don't see that when you guys are looking at each other. I see like some love and like warmth. So congratulations. Not only you look happy to be working together, but you're in the music industry together. And that takes a huge commitment to figure out, you know, how to navigate that. So my question is, do you have any advice for people listening who are going through something similar as far as working with a spouse or a partner or, you know, somebody that's close to them in a relationship with?
Man, that's it's tricky to think about, because it's you know, we just had we've been together for about 15 years. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of being married, and
Congratulations,
the band will be 10 years old. So it's just, you know, I think there's something to be said for just you know, being the best you can be. I mean, you know, like if I'm not at my best, I'm not going to be a good band member, husband, friend. You know, or, you know, it's like if the plane's going down, you got to put your mask on before you can help anyone else out.
Yeah.
And I know
That's
that
important. That's really important. People don't.
Well, you have to be at your best, and you know, because you're not going to be of any help or joy to someone else if, you know, if I'm having a bad day and I'm grumpy and I'm short with my answers and terse, then I'm just an asshole to be around.
Yeah.
If I can figure out a way to keep that stuff in check, then I you know, I'm more pleasant to be around. I mean, last year we both kind of hit a wall. We were touring so much. We did about 8 months with Steve. We did a few weeks opening for the Wood Brothers as the Mastersons, and then we did a month in Europe of headlining dates. And I mean, that was
how many shows is that?
I don't even want to know.
Because you're doing 2 shows a night when you're opening for Steve.
Yeah. It's 2 sound checks, 2 shows, and a meet and greet.
Wow.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of work.
And but so mid-year last year, we were just both really worn out and not particularly happy. And it was strange because I realized, I was like, look, I'm gainfully employed. We're squirreling money away. Our marriage is great. It's just fine. But we're working at such a clip. There's no time to recharge, no time. And you're constantly around people. So we asked Steve for separate hotel rooms. So that was so now when we tour, we go to our own rooms.
Yeah.
And we'll still have date night, or, you know, go over and watch a movie, but just personal space, because we're constantly around people. We're around each other, and we're around other people on buses and venues. So just having some alone time, and we both meditate, and you know, it's, you know, life's full on for everyone, but it's like if I can take a little time and align myself with the world before I go out into the world, then I can, it covers all areas of our life. I can be a better band member. I can be a better husband. I'm less likely to snap at little things.
Sure.
But we can run our business better.
Sure.
and it's just by taking a little personal time. So, and then maybe, you know, but running a business with your significant other isn't, you know, maybe that's not the right thing for a lot of people.
Did Steve do like your dad and said, look, you're going to have separate rooms, but you each got to pay 50% of the cost?
No, he was actually great. No, he was, Eleanor brought it up. And he was actually, you kind of have that, you have that dialogue in your head ahead of
Of course.
in advance, you know.
Yeah.
But to his credit, he's like, that makes sense.
Yeah. I was being facetious, but yeah, I'm sure. You know what? I give you guys credit because like over the weekend or yesterday, I was talking to my wife and I said, you know, this is bothering me. And she just said, hey, well, you know, try this. I think this is a good solution for you. And I was like, you know what? Thanks. And it's easier for someone to help you when they're not in it with you. But that's when you're both like, oh my God, we're wiped out, we're burnt. It's hard for either one of you because you're both in it to say, well, you know, you're working too hard. That's really tough, man. I think that was a really mature thing to do, to say, hey, we need some alone time. That's going to, for the greater good of our marriage and our performance. Yeah, I think that was really smart. Really smart, actually.
And also, you know, it's hard. Most of the time, one of us would flag and the other would. Like, so if someone was having a bad day, the other person is positive. And, you know, and that's, on the surface level, you'd think that's a good thing. But it's also kind of like, it's depressing for the person that's having a good day and then to watch their partner having a bad day. You know, I guess it's better than both people flagging or bottoming out at the same time, but I don't know. It's you know, it's not easy. But I don't, you know, but then again, we're really lucky to have each other, especially, you know, transitioning from guitar player or, you know, side musician to band leader was it was not easy, and it made me respect everyone I've ever worked for, even the bad ones, just because it's, you know, you realize that, you know, as a guitar player or violin player or whatever, you show up when the day sheet tells you to, you know, and, you know, you just go kick ass and be nice, and then you're done. When the band leader is always has so much more on his or her shoulders.
Yeah. I hear that almost 100% of the time when someone I'm speaking to is a side man or side woman and a band leader. And they all say the same thing. I have so much more respect for artists, and they say I have so much more as a side man. It's even changed my attitude, because now when I have people playing for us, I notice, you know, hey, this person in the session says, no, man, let's do it again. I'm totally into that. If you want to get a different sound, versus the other person said, man, look, I got to get out of here.
Absolutely. No, it's like being a good side person makes you a better band leader, and being a better band leader makes you a good side. It was a very eye-opening experience, and continues to be.
How did you guys wind up meeting each other? I read like something about Brooklyn, and I don't know what the story was.
Before that, we were it was in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, at a music festival. I was playing with a guy named Jack Ingram, and Eleanor was playing with a woman named Susan Gibson, who most notably wrote Wide Open Spaces. The Dixie Chicks did. And it's just kind of like, there's a music festival there. It's a lot of Texas music, and it's a sort of collegiate. It's a lot of people like drinking a lot and skiing and listening to music. And I had gone, and I was kind of flying in and out quick because, you know, and I went to this party after our gig because our crew guys wanted to go, and I was just kind of being nice. I wanted to go back to our condo, but I was like, all right, we'll go up. You guys have one drink and then give me a ride. And I met Eleanor and her sister Bonnie there at the party. So I guess it's good I went.
I guess so.
and the three of us were all sort of wallflowers at this party. And that's where we met, hanging on the wall. So
That's cool, man. Congratulations again. That's nice.
Yeah.
In 2008, you released a solo record called The Late Great Chris Masterson. I don't usually ask about titles, but that's a pretty unusual one, man. What was behind that?
It's a straight up nod. There was a Townes Van Zant record, The Late Great Townes Van Zant.
Oh, okay.
It was just, I always loved that title, and it was just kind of floating around, and I was just like, why not?
Okay, I got it.
But even when I made that EP, it's so weird. And, I've always written songs and always co-written with people. Like, I made that EP and I was like, yeah, you just make an EP and you get a record deal and blah, blah. I had no idea like what everyone that had hired me all these years, how much sweat equity they had put into their trip, So yeah, I just made that. And I was playing in Sunvolt at the time. And so I didn't really, I played a couple of gigs in Austin around it, but it's, I didn't do much with it.
Great title, man.
Hard out there.
It is. I listened to, and I also read the story behind Don't Tell Me to Smile, which is a single off the Mastersons 2017 album, Transient Lullaby, which is also a really cool name. I really liked that song. I thought it was really cool. And there's a good story behind that. So I was hoping you can share that. And again, for people listening, this is the song by the Mastersons called Don't Tell Me to Smile. Great track. And I'd like you to listen to it.
Well, we were playing, I think it was in somewhere in North Dakota. This was a Steve Earle gig. And the town is escaping me right now, but it was a casino gig, big showroom. And we were playing one of Steve's songs. It may have been Ben McCullough, or it was a somber song. And there was this, and Eleanor's playing fiddle and ripping solos, but there was this woman that kept walking up to the barricade and doing this, putting her fingers on the edges of her, mouth, making the smile gesture. And it was like, and Eleanor's just like, stop that. And Eleanor's a pretty serious person, pensive and serious. I mean, she smiles when she wants to, basically, but certainly not in the middle of a song where people are dying, or that would just look hee-haw. But this woman did this like 3 times during the show, and then it was finally like, and I was just like, fuck off, finally. And this poor lady just looked like, what? And so that was the end of it, and we didn't see her at the meet and greet after the show, and
surprising.
But then she wrote the song, and it I helped her out with it, and we made some T-shirts, and it, they kind of look like the old Flying Burrito Brothers T-shirts, and we can't keep enough of them in the merch booth, so we really have to thank that lady.
Yeah, funny how that works.
It's funny, and now how I think it's, so on the casual level, that's what the song's about, but it also speaks to like, why would you just walk up to someone and tell them how they should?
That was weird.
I mean, how about, pull a rabbit out of your hat, or tell a funny joke, or do something charming, and that might invoke a smile on someone,
Yeah. No, it's always, usually people reserve that for social media when they tell you what to do. In person, people are usually not as, everybody's a guru.
A keyboard warrior.
Yeah, right. Everybody's, a shaman or a therapist or whatever. But in person, people don't, usually do that.
Well, hats off to that lady for doing that. Yeah,
man.
Most people don't have the courage to troll in public.
That's right. I'm serious. You're getting ready to work on a new album, you guys, with Shooter Jennings. What are you most looking forward to about the record?
I guess, we made, at the start of this year, we made a Tanya Tucker record with Shooter and Brandy Carlisle producing. And we also made 2 records with Shooter back in, I think, 2010 at the Magic Shop in New York. Family Man, and I think The Other Life. It was a 1 session, but we recorded like 20 some odd songs. So it turned into 2 records. And now we just have the funnest time hanging out with him. He's like a young Leon Russell. He's just kind of stylistically, it's hard to put him in one box. When we were making the Tanya record, he was doing that by day and writing with Marilyn Manson by night.
Wow.
And he just
Pretty diverse.
He just got done doing a tour with Duff from Guns N' Roses. He produced a record for Duff, and they're coming back from Europe right now. And so what I really love about him, if his last name weren't Jennings, and he didn't come from that family lineage, it's Jesse Coulter's mom, and he would just be a big music geek.
Right.
It's what I really, really, really love, because we're not sitting down going, how do we make an Americana record, or how do we do something that fits in this shoebox? Because I don't, our vinyl records out here in the living room are all alphabetical. They're not by genre.
Of course.
And I always thought that was, I like record stores that are just have, that are organized alphabetically, because that's how music is. There's good music and bad music. So we made this record at the start of the year, and it was a lot of fun just from start to finish. And, being at Sunset Sound is such a legendary studio here in Hollywood. Just from the Doors to all the Disney recordings to, look up Sunset Sound, and it's, I bet a bunch of your favorite records have been made there. So I guess that just reminded us what a joy it was to be around him and hang out that studio. So we just started to put those wheels in motion this year as we wrote. And, he's had a really busy year, and as have we. So we're going to reconvene this month and kind of get our ducks in a row.
Where are you doing? Are you doing do that just in your home studio or in his home studio, or?
We haven't even figured it out. He's so casual about that, and we're all, I don't even think it matters.
Yeah.
We both have spaces, but it was so nice to get off the road. I pulled all the guitars out, or not all of them, but probably the first 15 out.
Oh, you travel with a lot of guitars.
Well, with Steve, there's about 5 out. That's 5 or 6, but at home, when we just have so much gear. It's nice. Guitars are fun.
Oh yeah. Was Ted Russell Camp working with you guys with shooting?
Ted was on that record. Yeah.
Yeah, I had Ted on the show a while back.
He's great. I've known Ted I met him back when I played with Jack, and he came and played and kicked ass on that Tanya record.
All right, I'm gonna name some names, and for each of these folks, if you could talk about how you got the gig.
All right.
Initially, and then maybe a cool or interesting story about working with them.
Okay.
Let's start with Steve.
Okay. Well, Steve, and this ties into that whole just organic thing. I met Steve around 2001 in Byron Bay, Australia, at the Byron Bay Blues Fest.
Wow.
We had, I was there playing with a guy named Wayne Hancock. And I was a Steve fan. We weren't friends. We had a mutual friend, and this guitar player who's since passed on, but who's left an indelible mark in my life in playing Stephen Bruton. But so I walked up to Steve Earle backstage and was like, hey, I'm a friend of Bruton's. And that's kind of how we sat down and drank Dr. Pepper and smoked cigarettes and talked and stayed friends. Steve he had that lineup of the Dukes had Eric Embel on guitar, so he had a guitar player. Like that chair wasn't open, but we just hit it off, and we stayed in touch for almost 9 years before the gig happened.
Wow! So you had a genuine friendship.
Yes,
that's really nice. That's really nice, man.
Yeah. So I guess that's also what I meant about I hate that word networking, or like going at someone with an angle. It's just not congruent with the type of music I play. I was a fan of Steve's guitar player, so I wasn't like going after someone's gig. We just stayed friends.
That's really nice, man.
Then Steve had a period where the Dukes kind of were on hiatus, and he did he did the Towns record, and he did Washington Square Serenade. He did 2 records that were basically solo touring cycles. Or he and his partner at the time, Allison Moore, went out together. And then I forget, I was talking to him about something, and he just said, when I fire the Dukes back up, the gig's yours if you want it. And I was like, wow, okay, cool.
That's That's a pretty good.
But then the Dukes hadn't fired. He still had other obligations. Then Eleanor and I were both living in New York, and his wife at the time, Allison Moore, was putting a band together for a record she had just made called Crows, and she called Eleanor and I to put a rhythm section together and do the TV tour. Just some kind of press. We went. Leno, Letterman, and all those things. So I think that's when when Eleanor became a part of Steve's radar, just as what she could contribute to a band, not just on violin, fiddle, but, tenor guitar, mando, keys, or harmonies. Like she just, she does a lot of shit.
Yeah. How did you like living in New York? Because you guys are from the South. Was there any culture shock there? We both wanted to move there. And I never had there was never a timeline on it. I was like, I want to live there. I don't care if it's for a year or if I never get out alive. Which might happen.
But so we were both, we both felt that. And at the time I was playing in Sunvolt. So I had, Jay Farrar's never like toured that extensively, not like Steve, but I had, say half of my year's income taken care of. So that helped.
Yeah, for sure.
And we saved up some money and we just went. And we were there 5 years almost to the day. And again, it's just how we got to New York. Eleanor was she didn't have a steady gig. She was trying to self-release a record. So she was kind of pretty focused on that. I was playing in Sunvolt, but also we were both just up for any gigs we could get to keep the lights on and not blow through our savings too fast.
Sure.
And, I got a call to play with Jill Sobiel, and I went and did this thing. There's some kind of festival on the Hudson River, on I don't know, the west side of town. It was a while ago, and I went and did this thing. We sound checked, and then it rained all afternoon, so we were stuck in this trailer for hours. And I was sitting in there with who's now a dear friend, Byron Isaacs. He played bass in Ola Bell. He's in the Lumineers now.
Oh, wow.
But we sat in this rainy trailer and we talked for hours, and we were from Houston. And so we just, we were waiting out the storm together. We totally hit it off, played that gig. And then, it was like a year passed before I even saw him again. But he called me for a gig or something. And then that's when he called me he was producing Amy Helm's record. Okay. So that was the first time I went up to Woodstock and started making music in the barn.
How was that?
Fucking amazing. It's like, the first time I met Levon, I think it was a song. So Byron and Amy and I, it was something, they already had cooking. And then, we'd done a little, kind of pre-production jamming up there. And then Levon and Larry Campbell came in, and Larry was playing fiddle on the session. But I think I counted Levon in on that song. And talk about, nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Just counting one of your heroes in.
Yeah.
But that's not to say, like Byron, everybody on that session, though, Levon would be the most notable person in the room. Like everybody in that session is an absolute badass. I love Amy's records and her voice, and Byron's a world-class musician, and obviously Larry's work, both with his wife and his tenure with Dylan, I was just surrounded by badasses.
It's beautiful up there too. That part of
yeah.
Upstate New York is so gorgeous, man.
But but again, there was no template or direct path to that.
Right.
There's no networking of I just show up at this party, or I don't even know. It was all organic and kismet.
There's only one person I've spoke to who has intentionally gone out and networked, and it was back in the 80s in LA where that was a thing. This was a hot spot, and this is where you went, right, and this is how you dressed, and this is the car you drove for his particular thing that he wanted to do.
Sure.
But most people I've literally, you said there's no template. They've done exactly what, they've just been on, just been honest and sincere and like, hey, how are you doing? And I like your music. And one thing leads to another.
Right. I don't think I've ever like landed a gig from an audition or like anytime someone's manager calls, it's usually like the direct connections. And it's good to go out to gigs, and it's hard. Like we went out and saw a friend play right after we got off, when we got off the road, like the night after. And, sometimes it's hard. You just want to stay home, but it's,
Oh God, yeah.
But then again, it's, if you go out and support other musicians and we don't do it all the time, but it can come back favorably, or, maybe they'll just be at your gig the next time, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to, as with anything in life, whether it be a marriage or a job or a hobby, it's like, are you giving as much as you take?
Yeah.
That question could be asked of anything.
Yeah. I think that's a very important question. I think that's an important question you ask yourself, man.
Absolutely. In any scenario. In a song, in a story or a narrative that you're trying to talk to people it's that's I try to let that guide my life. I'm not far from perfect at it.
Sure. No, but that's a good narrative. I like that. I think it's a good narrative.
How many musicians do you know that sit at home and just say, man, there's nothing going on in this town or that town, and the scene sucks. And it's like, well, man, you haven't been out in a month. Like, what do you do? Like, what are your contributions to this scene or this environment?
It's interesting that you say that, because I always marvel, because I'm connected with most of the people I've spoken with on social media. And I always find it so nice that, so-and-so's on vacation in this town. First night they're out watching this person play, or they're hanging with this person going to another show. And I think that's why this music community is so awesome. Everybody is in it together, man. And everybody carries, the more successful people carry that part, that duty to support on their shoulders. And I think that's what makes this such a great community. One of the many things.
Oh man. And I've kind of found, a lot of the really successful people are really laid back and really sweet and really kind about it. And it's the ones that have a bit more attitude are just, a bit more fledgling. I don't know. It's not an attractive characteristic in people, and it's something you try to. I guess we all have our bad days, or people catch us at the wrong time. But
sure.
But my heroes are really open. People with open hearts and really, really warm, and there's a duality that happens, to get through life, not just the music business, but anything in life. You kind of have to have a tough exterior and, raise your elbows but to make really good art and be a listener and a participant, you have to have an open heart.
Yes.
So how do you, the trick, and maybe you find it through meditation, maybe you find it through exercise or practice, but how do you have both of those attributes?
Yeah, no, it's a tough thing, because you have to be thick-skinned to survive and make your way and not get screwed sometimes, but you don't be an asshole in the rest of the time. Yeah. But I think a lot of it is people that are you have to be aware of that. Like, you have to know, okay, I'm going into this mode, so I've got to put my thicker skin on, and then I'm going to go here so I can be myself and be open-hearted, because I'm not in business mode.
Eleanor and I went and saw Joe Henry play on Friday night at Largo, and he left it all on the stage. As a lyricist, he makes you want to choose your words more carefully. As a guitar player, it's just sublime, and it's not perfect, but the performances are perfect because of their, I don't know, it's amazing. I guess you have a tough exterior on the way to the gig, and you open your heart when you jump on the stage. I mean, you can just tell when someone's in the moment, and those are my favorite records. My favorite records aren't the perfect records where every note and beat is in its place. They're the ones where that performance that you just feel, and
How did you first hook up with Shooter?
Okay, Shooter. He called me. This is about maybe 2009. So we weren't doing the Steve gig yet. We were living in New York, and that was a period where we were both looking for work. It was like all reasonable offers accepted. Yeah. But Shooter called through, I guess, his bass player Jeff Hill, who I had met, and he's played with Chris Robinson and Rufus Wainwright. But I think Jeff introduced us, and I met Shooter in passing, but he didn't know my playing. But Jeff recommended me for this record, and it was a great lineup. Tony Leone on drums, John Graboff on pedal steel, Eric Deutsch on keys. And so Shooter calls out of the blue, cold calls, and we talked for a while and about the record, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. We discuss, dates, dough, pre-production, and we're hitting it off, and then like almost his last sentence on the fucking phone call was like, now I just need to find a fiddle player.
Oh my God. How cool. That's like the best last sentence you could ever hear.
It was. And like we also try to kind of not ram our partners or our projects down. Like if you hire me for a gig, I'm not going to come just handing out Mastersons records or telling you, so like, or if someone hires Eleanor, she doesn't say, you got to get Chris on guitar. You want to keep, some autonomy and some personal space. But so I don't just tell everybody I work with they have to hire Eleanor, though I like it very much.
Of course. And I know it's not just for financial reasons. That's nice. Right. But like, who the hell wouldn't want to play with your partner? Someone you love and care about, and like what would ever possess someone not to want to do that, right?
But that was like Shooter's last thing. No, I just need to find a fiddle player, and I literally just took the phone. I'm like, hang on a second, let me and Eleanor talk.
Oh my God!
She did it. But she contributes so much more than just being a badass, and she can play fiddle in a country, or in an improvising. Or she can write out an arrangement and, track quartet stuff on her own, or sit and play first violin. But she's a great singer. Her mom was an opera singer. Her dad was a folkie. So she kind of got both sides of it. Mm. And, on that record, there's a duet that she sang. She sang a duet with Shooter, and then like Tom Morello took the guitar solo. So like just randomly, it's like Shooter Jennings featuring Eleanor Whitmore and Tom Morello. Like
that's pretty.
How cool was that?
Fucking amazing.
On a country song, it's like, wow, those are three names that you wouldn't think.
Yeah.
How beautiful is that?
Did you get to hang or meet Tom?
Tom sent that track in. I have met Tom through Steve because they're buds a few times, but not on that session.
That's wild, man.
But I think I'm playing most of the guitar on the track, but then Morello has the solo, and just in that thing that he does, it's instantly recognizable that no one else does.
Yeah, it's so distinctive. I mean, from the first touch immediately, really distinctive.
So yeah, that's how I met Shooter, and then. I've never shared a stage with him. Like when that record or those records came out, we had already fired up with Steve. So it wasn't until like, this Tanya thing last year he called me about, and now we're doing this together. And I really love being around him. He and his wife are just great people, and just super casual, super laid back, and
that must be, I bet you that there's another, you and your wife play, him and his wife. That's got to be nice too. Well,
Misty doesn't play music that I know.
Oh, she doesn't. Okay.
No. But I just mean that they're a powerhouse couple, and they're kind of inseparable, and they have, so Misty was around a lot on the session. So that's why I was referring to that.
Oh, okay.
Musical.
Okay. Well, good luck with the record, and doors open once you are finished. Come back on the show. I'd love to promote it and share it with my listeners, man.
Yeah. No, it'll be good. We're just, now we kind of have the guitars out this month, and the songs are there. Now we're just sitting around like figuring out who's singing what. And, we being in a band with two married front people, even, songs take on a few different versions before you land on what may hit the record.
No, it's okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Process,
and we're, one thing we learned from making records with Steve Earle is we make them quick, and it's the sound. Capturing lightning in a bottle is a hell of a sound.
That's great.
Anyone can sit with Pro Tools and make something with 100 playlists, but like to have a performance like when you hit play, it's like, oh wow, that was
that's awesome.
A moment in time. So not to say we won't fix this or that, but you really shoot the special stuff. The secret sauce is all what happens live. Those are the jams. When you go start fixing that, you fix the worst, most offensive part of a record, then there's going to be a new most offensive part of the record. The rabbit hole that you want to try to avoid.
Chris, you've done a bunch of different things and a lot of cool stuff. Is if I ask you top 3 experiences musically, what would be your knee-jerk reaction to that?
Wow. I don't know. They happen all the time. And sometimes sometimes it's just standing on a stage singing with Eleanor. Like we can have a bad day, but we could be, or just go on stage stressed, and then you hit some point in the set where you're just like, man, we're surfing. We're like on the crest of this wave. And what's that? Oh yeah, Eleanor's shouting. But like next month we're doing this tour where there were these dates with it's called the Lantern Tour. They just announced it. They're announcing it today. They were doing this interview anyway. With the Jackson Browne and Emmylou Harris and
wow,
Patty Griffin, and I don't know. So I guess those times, and it's happened a lot. And I don't mean it to brag. It's totally humbling. But like through playing with Steve, you get to, like I'd said, stand on stage and back up Warren Haynes, or you play with Patty Griffin, who's always been a hero, or a couple years ago, Eleanor and I, one night we were the band for Emmylou Harris and Lucinda Williams, and just people that you grew up idolizing and listening to, and then you're on a stage with them, and it's there's so much that we all do, stupid human tricks to pull off, having a band and being self-employed and those lean periods, that when you get to do something special like that, it's more affirming than a chunk of money.
Sure.
It's like, okay, I guess I'm not going to hang it up this month.
No, I get it, man. But that is nice when you get those opportunities to.
Counting Levon Helm into a song. I don't know, just, but they can be had anywhere. They don't have to be with a super famous person. Like it could just be ripping a good solo or something on record that you're really proud of. And I don't think it should be, I think it's all relative, and you probably have listeners that don't, do this on the same level as the people you bring on the show. And I think I would hope that they can attain the same amount of joy from this.
They do.
Because I don't want to be I don't think people that are fortunate, that have good gigs should be like the gatekeepers of musical bliss or joy.
No, I don't think you're coming off like that at all remotely. I think you're talking about just if anything, the humbling experience it has been for you to share the stage or count Levon Helm in. That to me, that's how you're coming off. Not like, well, counting Levon Helm, That's
no, but I also just think, I think music, I think that artists, I think we get into this for a connection, and to connect with people, whether it's, you know, I mean, when I was young, you know, I saw Keith Richards and Bruce Springsteen with tellies down by their knees, like, and girls going crazy. But as I've matured as a person and a writer, you realize that we're just all looking for a connection, you know, and, you know, I think it's very important now with where we sit in the world and our country. It's just like if we can use this to connect in a positive, loving, empathetic, nonpartisan way, you know. And I have to believe that the guy that's jamming with his friends on a Sunday in a garage is having the same amount of joy as I am on a stage.
Yes.
And I really hope that.
I would say yes, based on everybody and based on myself. Yeah, I would say that 100%. Yeah, man, that's what music does.
That was like my dad. He knew the same, like I said, the limited catalog of songs, but anytime he'd get stressed, he'd leave the room and you'd hear his door slam, and then like 10 seconds later you'd hear Wildwood Flower start, and that was his release.
Yeah.
And when we meet people in the meet and greet, people will go, I play guitar, but I'm not good. And my question is always, do you enjoy it? It's like, who cares if you're good? My dad influenced me to pick this thing up, and he enjoyed it always.
It's interesting because the thing I love doing is playing guitar. It really is very magical for me. And I've never, ever, ever picked up a guitar and then felt worse an hour later. I always feel infinitely better.
True.
You know?
I mean, I've had nights on the road, you know, when you do, you know, close to 200 shows in a year, you know, we don't get nights off. You know, we go on stage with the flu. We go on stage when our voices aren't in shape. I've gone on stage where I thought my dog was home dying. I was on stage in Switzerland the day after my dad died.
Oh, sorry, man. That's heavy.
And you try to still, you know, you try to respect the audience and realize that, you know, there might be people in the crowd that need some musical escapism, or, you know, you just realize that, you know, it's expensive to go to a show. So everybody deserves a good show, and everyone deserves your all. So you really, you know, I think, you know, when someone tours that much, you're going to have nights where you're not as happy to be on stage as other nights.
It'd be impossible not to.
Or you're playing on stage and you're like, wonder what's in catering for after this. But the flip side of that coin is the tickets cost the same on a Tuesday night in whatever small town as they do in London. And those people probably got a sitter, and that might be their big night out that month. So, you know, you damn well want to try to create some joy on the stage. And so, like, I can usually get lost in the music in a cool way. And Steve's a cool boss because he, as long as you hit the signature bits, he's cool with you changing it up. So I'm usually on stage trying to get the drummer to crack up because he's the closest to me. Like just changing solos or grabbing the slide here. But then that affects how Eleanor plays. There's 3 soloists in the Dukes, and Ricky Ray Jackson, the steel player. So if I'm changing my solo, it'll change everybody's. You know, it has a snowball effect. Like everyone will rise to that occasion or lower to that occasion.
No, man. That's what's cool. That's what makes it fun every night. You know.
Yeah, and to Steve's credit, he lets it all go down. You know, and you know. Yeah, one night I was taking fills in a verse of a song, which I'm usually always really careful to, you know, when you're taking fills around a singer, you don't want to get in the way.
Yes.
You know, serving the song. But I took a fill that cracked him up and he missed it. I'm like, oh shit. But he was having fun. He wasn't mad. It's just like, I think it caught him by surprise.
That's cool, man. Chris, what were some of the low points or maybe dark periods that you had to deal with in life, and how'd you get through them?
Well, let's see. I mean, I don't think I'm that unique. I think we all have, you know, once people start sharing experiences, they all have, you know, friends they've lost or about lows they've hit. I mean, I've been in recovery for a little over 20 years.
That is awesome, man. Congratulations.
So as a wild man in Hollywood, when I came out here in my teens, the Cliff Notes version is I learned what to do and what not to do.
That's awesome.
And that's just my path. That's not, there's other people that don't have that predisposition. But that was something that I had to, figure out with the help of people, but it's also shaped my life in a really, it's made me, given me the kind of life I only dreamed of back then. So, that was definitely a low point.
Can I ask you a couple of questions about that? Because it's, I've had so many people share getting sober stories, and I get so much, an incredible amount of mail from listeners that it really helps them because, as you know, man, people are struggling. And I actually had so many people, expressing gratitude for hearing the stories. We set up a getting sober playlist on YouTube for these. It's
wow.
It's because look, man, I want to support that any way I can,
Sure.
Everybody's been impacted that in their life,
Yeah. Or they've had a family member or a loved one.
Right. And I have multiple people. And so I'm like, man, anything I could do to support sobriety or put positive vibes out there. So I set up that playlist. It's our most popular, most well-trodden playlist.
That's great.
Yeah. Which I was really happy about. But, so if you're cool, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure. Yeah.
What was for you? What was the trigger? I don't want to say what was your bottom because that's too canned, but what was the trigger that made you say, man, I need to get sober, and this time it worked?
I overdosed one time and that wasn't enough. Then, there was a time when I quit doing what I deemed hard drugs, and I'm like, I'm just going to drink and smoke pot. And then, then I wound up back at Cedar Sinai out here with alcohol poisoning. And it just like when I quit, with cocaine and heroin out of the picture, then I just sort of started drinking like an old man. But I was like 20.
Holy shit.
And so then there was like the hospital trip there for alcohol poisoning, and then like the last night was like, I just passing out at bars, leaving weird. Here's a guitar centric thing. I had some nice gear at the time. Like I had a 55 Strat I bought for about $3,500, which was expensive for me at the time, but still very cheap for a 55 Strat. I would leave that shit in people's trunks, and people would call me the next day. No cell phones, so like, hey man, I have your guitar. I would do some really sloppy stuff, out here. But there was just a night, I guess when I just kind of bottomed out in this bar and went out on the sidewalk, and I knew it was it. And I'm a lucky guy because I've never relapsed. And
wow.
And I don't, and again, that's not a brag because
no.
Because I've done stupid shit in sobriety too, but
I'm laughing only because like who doesn't do stupid shit?
Well, but I also but I remember early on you hear everyone share about their relapse, and so you think it's a rite of passage, but so far it hasn't been. And I'm not granted permanent immunity from anything.
Sure.
It's sort of a daily reprieve, but no, it's just life has gotten better and better. And when it hasn't, I've had the sort of tools and community to deal with it. And it's made me, it's really the most important thing in my life. It's shaped how I play music, how I interact with people, how I am as a son, how I am as an employee, how I am as a husband, how we run our business. And I don't, but bad shit still happens to good people. It's like just because someone sobers up doesn't mean their life's going to be a country song in reverse. It's like, I got the truck back, I got the girl back, I got the job back, And I think it could be disappointing if someone were looking for only doing it for that. But things have gotten really good, and you know, enough so where I keep it close. I don't. It's funny. Some people will sober up and they'll get very public, and it'll become, part of their, their bio for whatever record they're putting out, or and everyone has their own path. I'm not knocking it, but just for me, it was kind of like I keep it private. We go, when I'm standing on a stage, any performing musician, unless you're, playing arenas every night, we're basically beer salesmen.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And if I go out on a Saturday night and someone's having fun in the front row, I don't care if they had coffee before the show or beer.
Right.
We're trying to connect and create a galvanizing experience with music. Now, if sobriety can help someone out, I'm all in, and we'll sit up all night and we'll talk about it. So I've always just I'm not super public about it. But then if there's a point where it can be of use to someone, I'm all about it. And I want to, because it was good to see when I sobered up in LA, to see people that I respected. I realized, early on, I was like, wow, everybody from the punk rock world I loved is either, dead or at meetings.
Yeah.
And now I also have some musician friends that smoke weed all day and kick ass and have great lives too. So it's not, I like to be around people that are enjoying themselves, and I don't like to be around people that are being destructive to themselves. But, if to anyone out there that's, thinking about a different way of life, yeah, it gets better.
First of all, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, man. And I know people listen are going to be helped by that. So really appreciate it. As to the last thing you said, I trying to think who said it. He said it's going to get better. I had someone on the show, and I apologize. I'd love to give them credit. I can't think, which is the downside of having so many interviews. But he said it's going to get a lot worse, but then it's going to get a lot better. something like that, And it was.
But what endeavor isn't? Whether you're looking at having a successful marriage, or, relationship with your folks or your kids, or a business. I mean, it's,
It's always a grind in the beginning, getting it up and running. That's just the way it was. Anything you're doing, you're right. Anything you're doing.
But, some people come into this world well-adjusted and everything seems easy for them. And some people, it's not. And sometimes you need help, and sometimes it takes a village, and it's, and it's important that people know the village is out there. And I think another, not just an addiction, but when you hear about people taking their lives, and, I think people have become really insular these days. They, tied to their devices, and they don't go out, and they just, you don't realize what other people are going through, and people have similar crosses to bear. And,
yes.
If you're trying to just follow everyone's life through their optics on Instagram, it looks like everyone's doing better. And you're home and depressed. Yeah, it looks like everyone's just having a banging day or banging career, but you don't realize that they might be going through the same thing, or they might have a similar struggle until it's too late and they've left this mortal coil, or I don't know. So I have a community of people that, I share with, and I'm helped as much as I'd help others. It's that give and take thing. You make sure you're giving as much as you take, and it's given me a better life.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it, man. And congratulations on your sobriety.
Thanks. It's I'm
happy. What you just said about, I had Neil Casale on my show.
And he's who I was thinking.
Yeah. And then literally 2 weeks to the day I had him on, I fire up Facebook and I'm like, what?
Yeah. And I've met Neil a few times over the years. I feel like I was way more of a fan than even an acquaintance. Our drummer was Steve Earle. Brad toured with him in Ryan Adams' band for a long time. And so, being with Brad that day. And that's, again, you never know what someone's cross to bear is. And that was a hard one.
Yeah, it was terrible. And what was, I watched the interview afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a question in there, and it was really sad. We're talking about help. I said, "Are you good about getting help?" Innocent, and I meant in general, and he said, musically, yes. He goes, let's probably not really personally. Let's just talk about music as it relates to that. So, it was really, it was just sad when I saw that, watching that again post. Yeah. Man, let's talk about gear and guitars.
All right.
Switch gears, but thank you, man. I really appreciate you sharing all that. That was really helpful and very kind of you.
No, I think that's, whether we're just talking about guitars to other guitarists, or whether it's how we're writing a record that I think will speak to people in our country. And, we've been thinking very much how we want to talk to people in a record that will be released in 2020. And it's not even, politics is part of it, but it's not, we're not excluding anybody, but there's love and empathy is what really we all need to take care of each other for this next chapter.
I agree 100%. 100. Without a doubt, man. It ain't too complicated, but apparently it is.
Well, and it's, and I could do a whole, more will be revealed when the record comes out. We'll just save some of that, but okay. But yeah, anytime. And, I can be, I'm happy to talk about that. Cause we're all just, pilgrims going down the road. So we got to out and figure out how to take care of each other and lift each other up,
Yeah, totally. Hey, tone. I told you before we started recording, your tone is really warm and very consistent. Is that something you've worked on? And without getting too anal, what is like your setup to get that tone?
I think resistance is part of it. So I like guitars that have quirks. Obviously I've spent a lot of time on Telecasters. I kind of like medium high action. I don't, sometimes someone will hand you a guitar and they'll hand you this thing with low action, and they'll like have descriptors like, oh, it's buttery, or like, I was like, I want to pick up a guitar. Like I like acoustics with really old strings on them. And, obviously you want things that, where the tuners work and they don't impede progress. You don't want to be the guy in the session that's tuning all day, but I do like things that are kind of funky and have quirks. And
you like to fight a guitar a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's part of the sound.
Yeah.
Part of my sound.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a lot, I'm really lucky to have a lot of instruments around here, and I'll find a different muse in different guitars. And I'll play, I'll go through phases, where I'm just grabbing the tellies mostly, or where I'm grabbing a Les Paul, or grabbing, a Collings. I don't know. I like it's, I think great players can make, I think you hand Mark Rebo a Harmony Stratotone or a Telecaster, and it's going to sound like Mark Rebo.
Yes. Man, I can't tell you how many guys that I've had on that are well-known players, and, just randomly pick something up, and I'm like, man, you never play that guitar, but you sound just like you do, and you're playing your Les Paul on this Harmony on this Telly or something like that.
Right.
It's crazy, man.
Right.
Really crazy.
I play with my fingers a lot. I don't even know. So when I was really young, I took some lessons, learned scales and, learned, modes and names of chord voicings. And I could retain enough of that to show up next week and be like, yeah, I did my homework. But it wasn't until I started going out to blues jams or playing with people when I was like, oh, so here's how this pentatonic scale works. Okay, here's what the relative minor is. Like, that's when the theory kind of all took place. And now I'm a caveman. Like I do so much incorrectly. You know, I can chart a song and work off charts somewhat, what my eyes will allow me to do. My eyes are pretty bad. But it's kind of like, you know, learn the rules and then break them.
Right.
And so that's good. But so I don't even know how to explain what I do or how I do it. But I mean, sometimes I'll play with my fingers. I'm always trying to play on the backside of the beat. You know, I'm always really just careful about where I'm sitting with the drummer, and because my favorite stuff is stuff that just feels like that. It's like how Eddie Taylor plays on a Jimmy Reed record. Why does Chuck Berry sound like he does? Why do those Dave Edmunds and Rockpile records, the ronk, you know, it's a straight 8 thing, but it swings a bit, and I just love that. It's to talk about it, you know, that doesn't exist in a textbook, to my knowledge. You know,
right.
It's a nebulous thing but that's what always struck me, like, about records. Just like, where's this guy sitting on this beat? Or, you know, like, you know.
You did this video. It was really cool, where you were like just playing a bunch of different guitars, and your Eleanor it was really cool to see her. I think she had a tenor guitar she was playing, and it was really cool because she just, like, your musical, you know, you could tell you guys don't just finish each other's sentences, like literally, but like your musical sentences as well, you know. So she just like hop right in, and it was really cool. But your tone on there, you were like, you had this, what I like to call kind of like the British brown sound, a little bit, the warmth and distortion. And I love that, man. What do you do to create that? Is it straight from the tubes? Are you pushing the amps? Are you using a pedal? What is your mojo for that particular tone?
Pretty much to the amps. There's so much. I think right now is really a renaissance period for gear. Ricky, our steel player, and I talk about it, you know, because we both gearheads on the road with a lot of time to sit around looking at eBay and Reverb.
Dangerous.
Oh yeah. Well, I know it's dangerous because Eleanor and I both, but you know, like, I'll show her a guitar, so I'm just like, yeah, get it. You know, like,
yeah, that's what's cool about me.
A lot of people have partners that put on the brakes. We just kind of enable each other. Our accountant might disagree. But no, like, I like small amps.
Small as in like one speaker, or like 10 watts, 18 watts?
Like, I mean, I could conquer the world with a deluxe, or try to conquer the world. I'm not that cocky. But there's also great, you know, I'm looking at here, I can't turn the camera because of the iMac, but like, I have a Black Volt amp. They're made here in Los Angeles, and it's kind of this guy's take on, say, the amp's called a Crazy Horse, so a take on like Neil's Tweed Deluxe.
Okay.
You know, and that was what I first saw Neil Young on Crazy Horse when I was 12. I stood at the edge of the stage, and I heard his sound coming out of those Tweed amps, out of his Deluxe. And I was like,
that's as good as that distortion ever got, man. You know that.
And you, like, when you're a kid, you don't realize the technology in a show. You don't realize that I'm hearing stage volume and not PA or not front fills. Like, I'm hearing the amp. And that's, you know, that was a pivotal moment, hearing Neil's guitar off the stage. We're hearing Johnny's guitars, but he was playing through 2 410 100-watt Music Man amps. So that was a way different, you know, aural assault. But man, I can look at the small amp, you know, whether it's the Black Volt. I have a couple amps, Swart amps, but those are 6v6 small amps with reverb and tremolo. I have a non-reverb Deluxe. I have a Magnatone and a vintage one. You know, just a small amp. I can do almost everything. You know, I like a little reverb and tremolo. But then the rest of it just becomes serving the song. Like, out with Steve, I have a really small pedal board. With some artists, I'll put different things on the board. Like, if there's something, you know, I need to have a delay with a tap on it, or I have to be able to tap the tremolos in time for this song, or I need a fuzz for this. But in general, I just put what I need for the gig. Because, like, though I'll sit at home and geek out about gear, you know, swapping tubes out, or, you know, fancy mics or I'm a total geek, but when it comes time to create, I don't want to be thinking about that. I want to be thinking about art. So,
by the way, I really appreciate your sound setup here, man. It's excellent. I wish everybody, you should have made an instructional video and I can prep everybody to send that to them.
Oh, I don't even know. This is the Pro Tools computer. So I'm just sitting in our studio.
But it's so well mic'd and it's like, oh my God, this is great.
Oh, no, I'm not even using these. This is just right now in our studio. We're demoing stuff. So I have a station with a small diaphragm condenser and a vocal mic, and Eleanor has a station. So we'll keep Pro Tools running and just like do takes of songs and and then, throw on keyboard stuff, or let's like, is this all going to be acoustic, or am I going to grab a baritone, and just kind of start sketching ideas out.
Sure.
So we can move pretty efficiently through the sessions. So yeah, we're just in the middle of all that right now. We'll probably cut another song today. But we can also, Eleanor does a lot of string arrangement stuff. So when we're not on the road and we're not loaded into a studio, we have enough work from producers, and like if someone needs a guitar track or someone needs a string arrangement, someone needs pedal steel, it's like, we have enough of that to keep the lights on when we're not.
That's great.
So we don't have a big studio, but we have enough gear to, record well, but
What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other two would round out your top three?
Well, so like right now, I just got a 58 Telly that's been sort of
Where'd you get that?
At Carter's Vintage in
Nashville. Oh, you mean literally like a couple of days ago or something?
No, I got it on tour. So earlier this summer, I had a day off in Nashville. It's a refin, so that's why I was kind of in my, I'm not in the tax bracket to make big purchases on a whim.
Sure.
Usually, but I saw it and I had some credit with them. I'd sold some stuff, so that helped. Okay. And but it's a refin. The frets are in good shape. It's they say the neck was oversprayed, but it feels pretty original to me. It's beat up, and so that's been a lot of fun to play, obviously, and that's something that brought the muse back. So even on a tour where I'm playing 5 nights a week, I'm still bringing that into the hotel room and just sitting around playing. And that's like anything you can have. I don't care if it's a Squire Telly or a fancy Telly, and I'm sure your listeners kind of fall everywhere in between that. Just
absolutely
find whatever gives you the muse. And so I got that. So that's been fun, and I've been using that a lot this summer. I have this Les Paul it's an R9 reissue from I think 2013 that Tom Doyle, he was Les Paul's tech, and he and his partner they've been making pickups. If you look up Tom Doyle, Les Paul, or Time Machine, and it's a friend of mine owns the guitar, but their pickups are some of my favorite humbuckers on the market right now. They're called Doyle Coils.
Doyle, what's that?
Doyle Coils, like COIL. Coils. And so Tom worked with Les for years and years, and when someone's trying to explain this stuff to me, I all of the descriptors and superlatives sometimes just get lost, and my eyes glaze over. I'm just like, hand me the guitar, let me hit an E chord. But I understand why they need to describe. It's just all dancing about architecture until you have it fired up through an amp. But I really love it. So I borrowed that guitar and took it out on tour this summer. And I also have a Collins I-35. They're sort of take on an ES style guitar. And it has a Bigsby on it, and it has some of those pickups. So I just got that from the Collins guys. So I've been really enjoying those pickups and those guitars. But so those have been some of my favorites. I have and also this summer I took out a baritone made by James Trussart. Oh, okay. And it was an offset style. I think I have the second one he did like that. I believe Charlie Sexton has the first one, and so it has a jazz master style, a mastery tremolo, and I've always wanted to have a baritone with a tremolo on it. There's a lot of times on record where I'll, having a baritone and a Mando guitar, like an octave 12 string, like where in the interest of serving a song, you're listening to it, it might not need all the mid-range of like a screaming electric guitar.
Sure.
So you find like, well, how am I going to find my way in on this song? And that might be going low with a baritone or a high-strung acoustic. How can I be a part of this ensemble? But, there's only so much mid-range in a track. And if you have a B3 player and a drummer, banging on cymbals and a singer and maybe another guitar player, maybe going high or low is the way in. So the baritone's fun. I was using that on about 4 songs in the show, and it always finds its way on the records, when I am not hearing, just the traditional mid-range. And
it's good that you think like that. Even that's really, I hadn't really thought about that, but you just taught me something today that, the way to think about things, you don't just think of in one,
No.
you're like you're like a carpenter, he doesn't just go there with a saw or a Phillips head,
No, think about a carpenter making a dovetail joint.
Yeah.
But it's also, like all this gear, and I love gear as much as, as you and all of your listeners, and it's fun. But if we're not serving the song with it, it's pointless. Or, if we're playing too loud and you can't hear the singer deliver the heartbreaking, punchline of the song, it's all for naught if we're not in service to that.
Tell me, you ever sell a guitar you wish you could get back?
I don't really have any regrets at the moment, but like I said earlier, I bought in the 90s, gear could be had for, a lot less. I mean, I was buying blackface super reverbs. That was $500. Which I still have one of those. But I bought that 55 Strat, it was like $3,500. And I sold that.
Oh, you did? I was going to ask you.
A lot more. I sold it for a lot more.
Okay, good.
But it's still like, I got to a point where I needed a few guitars when I was starting to get more just kind of pro touring gigs. And I realized that I had, I had changed. And when I was a kid drinking too much, I would take that guitar all around Hollywood and leave it places. And then I realized later on in life, I was leaving it under the bed and I wasn't using it like a tool. It was just this thing that I had that I pulled out from under the bed. And I was just like, man, I need amps and flight cases, and I needed things. So I sold a couple of guitars. I had an ES5 as well from 51, like the T-Bone Walker guitar. And so there's a period where I had a couple things and I sold them, and I don't regret it so much. I mean, yeah, sure, you'd love to own that stuff, but I was a carpenter that needed tools. As opposed to a carpenter that had this diamond encrusted hammer that they hung up on the wall and never used. So, I needed to have stuff on the road. So, and stuff's come back, like I said, I got that telly, and we've been working hard, and I can afford player grade things.
Is that with the original pickups in it?
It's not.
It's not. What does it look like?
It almost looks like it was Dakota Red.
Yeah. Wow, that is really pretty. Okay, so let me describe it for if you're not watching this on YouTube. Is that what it is, Dakota Red, or is it like candy?
No, it's not metallic at all. So it's like,
okay, call it Dakota Red.
I guess,
with a white pick guard, lipstick in the
those standard pickups. I mean, they're replacement pickups. So again, there was some player modifications, which is why I could afford it. Neck's all original.
Yeah, it's a maple neck, and it's worn just appropriately.
Look right here. So someone had rhinestones at the edge of the headstock. These they look like holes. They're just So it's rhinestone ready.
That's a first. That's a first in 600 episodes. It's rhinestone ready.
But the refin is old too.
Yeah.
So
little belt buckle rash.
Yeah, buckle stuff.
Looks great, man.
The jack is gaff taped on right now because it's falling out, and that's what our guitar tech did on this tour. I mean, I got it and I just started using it in this show right away.
Really nice, man. Really nice.
But
Dude, you could tell you're like so happy with that guitar. It's like a little kid showing me his fire truck, man. That was that was nice. Like I could feel the vibe, like when you're just like, you're smiling ear to ear with that thing in your hands.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love them all, and you find different things. Like I have my favorite acoustic is made by Waterloo, which is Collings.
Mm.
I have this flatter braced WL-14 that's all over that Tanya Tucker record. It's when we do a lot of shows with the Mastersons duo, just without a band.
Oh, just you guys, just the two of you together.
So I'll use that guitar a lot. So that's an example of a new instrument that's like feels like an old guitar. It sits in a mix like an old guitar.
That's nice.
I tend to like older things. Another thing, getting back to the tone thing, for the kind of music that I play, and I think a lot of people, our favorite guitar tones, whether you're thinking about, Page or Clapton or Peter Green or, Hendrix. I mean, just you go down B.B. King, Don Rich, they sat in this really specific spot frequency-wise. It's mid-range. And sometimes when you go play new amps, even great, great, well-built stuff, overbuilt, it takes up so much space. So much high, so much low end. And it's like, if you realize, most of my heroes, the tones took up a certain spot, but it wasn't a lot, it was a more specific frequency range. So that's why, like, using the little small bodied acoustic guitars that sits in a mix like an old instrument, using smaller amps, for this kind of music. I mean, it's just my preferences,
Some of your top 3 Desert Island discs, no particular order, and just for now. Obviously, I could ask you that in 20 minutes. It'd be a different answer.
I don't know, man. That's a tough one. Someone asked me that at dinner last night.
Really? That's weird that you got asked that question twice in 20.
I think it was maybe favorite guitar player, and I just, I don't know. I mean, it's like, when hearing like B.B. King live at the Regal, you start to. That's when touch. When you really start thinking about touch on a fretboard, the way his tone is, and. But then, like I think Ry Cooder makes perfect records. Like Paradise and Lunch. I don't know. Like pick any of the Ry Cooder records. I love Buddy Miller's playing, and anything he's a part of. I mean, that's another guy that's he has like a war chest of technique, but what he does to a song, just having the tremolo pedal on and softly accompanying, whether it's listening to him play with Emmylou or on his own recordings or with his wife. Man, there's just so much. I sit around when I'm home. I have vinyl records going, or I have Tidal playing. It's just music all the time. Listening to the Milk Carton Kids this morning. They're LA guys, both players. Just talking about touch and subtle and pretty. Daniel Lanois. Mm-hmm. That whether it be some of his stuff or records, again, he's been a part of, Wrecking Ball or, man, I don't know. Obviously, I mentioned Don Rich. I've always, as much as, when I play guitar with people, I don't look at center stage and think I'm going to be there one day. Like I'm with the Mastersons, with Eleanor, I'm like a reluctant front man. Like I enjoy it, and I enjoy singing with her very much, but I've always loved what Don Rich did with Buck Owens, or what Mike Campbell was to Tom Petty. Like I always loved that, sort of wingman, sort of co-pilot.
Dude, I got to tell you, you're like a total professional. Everything that you say, and I've seen you play, not in person, on like YouTube.
Right.
And then hearing you and your philosophy about how do you approach music, you are just like a total pro. And I am sure anybody that's got you in their band or as a sideman, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke up your ass, it's just, you have very classy as far as how you approach, and very courteous player as to how your approach to music in general, man.
Well, sure. I got the drunk and loud out of my system at an early age.
Well, it's
I wasn't born this way.
Yeah. Well, who is, man, right? You get to be a certain age. It's like, hopefully you're not the same dude you were 25 years ago. Anyway.
No, and hopefully I'll learn something on this next record. I want to, this is like, I am still a fan and a student. Yeah. And there's that's why what's so intriguing about podcasts like this, or that thing I went and did with actually Eugene for Fender Play last week, just a whole network of videos trying to teach and inspire people. Like, man, it's like there's a lot more to learn.
Some questions. This is the under the hood section, personal stuff now, as if we haven't talked about personal shit. Most important things you've learned about yourself, Chris?
The ability to listen. We all want to be heard, but can you really are you available to listen? And that's another one of those things that just, it happens in song and session, but as a partner, and it's something, that probably, I learned working with other musicians, but I also learned in the recovery world and just, trying to have a fuller life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I learned so much more. I mean, that's the only way to learn, I think, actually. You can't really talk and learn. Listening is that, whether it's musically or like you said, when you're talking to your partner or whatever, that's where the learning.
It still happens on sessions for me though. I mean, like I'll do a pass. I'll be out, we'll be tracking on the floor and then I'll walk into the control room. Usually you'll do a song a few times and let's everybody go see where we're at. And I walk in, I was like, wow, I could have said a third less on my instrument and it would be more profound. Interesting. Like space, rests are a musical value as well.
Yeah.
And same in life, sometimes it's like just.
No, totally, man. Best childhood memory.
Well, I saw a lot of music with my parents and it really defined, I don't know if I could pick one show, but so we lived in suburbia outside of Houston. So, meeting Johnny Winter when I was 8 years old. My mom took me to see Neil Young when I was 12 at the music hall in Houston and, standing in front of his amp. I can think of so many things that set me up that, my parents were so supportive.
Yeah, totally, man.
So supportive. And it totally set the stage for what I did. And Eleanor comes from a real supportive family too. Parents, her folks are getting ready to celebrate their 50th anniversary. And
wow.
And basically her dad just got her and her sister, Ronnie Whitmore, who's also a great singer, songwriter, bass player, cellist. He basically wanted his girls to play instruments, so he had a band. But then they got really good and got other gigs, and now it's like pulling teeth to get them to, we have some time off around the holidays, and he asked us if we'd play something with him. And the last thing we want to do when we get off the road is go out and play live. It's like, oh God. But then you think about it like, okay,
yeah, sure.
We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for them. But so we were both products of really supportive. And I also have to be clear, like middle class, like my parents were pretty frugal. Like we had our needs met and some of our wants,
What'd your folks do for a living?
My dad worked in the oil business. He started in Bakersfield on oil rigs after the Navy.
Wow.
So he was in Bakersfield when Merle was in the bars there. Like he was a wild young man at the right time in Bakersfield. But then moved to the South, met my mom in Louisiana, and they lived, in Laurel, Mississippi, and Lockport, Louisiana, where I came from, then Houston. So he always had,
So he followed the oil business pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because all those towns, those areas are all oil.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
But he then, started on rigs and wound up in the computer center. But I mean, he started fiddling with computers when and when they ran on tubes. So when he retired, he started working on tube amps.
That's cool.
He was always an engineer, always a tinkerer. So the garage was always full of random parts. And then, I had an amp go bad and like a warranty thing when I was in my teens, and the shop wanted, 3 or 4 weeks to fix it. And he's like, if I had a schematic, I could fix this. So as I was coming up, he was getting into that, and then he started restoring amps. So we started going to guitar shows together. So my time, like my fishing time, what most kids do with their dad if they're lucky, ours was at vintage guitar stores and
that's so awesome.
Guitar shows, and it's how I got to, it was great to start meeting people and learning about guitars. And but what I was saying is, like, they were both of our parents, like, they taught us how to fish.
Yeah, man.
Because Eleanor, right after college, has supported herself doing the same thing. So she's done a little environmental work over the years, but it's all been, kept the lights on with her instrument in hand.
That's awesome. Happiest moment or happiest time in your life?
Shit, what day is it? I think, I don't know. That's a really tough one. I think that by, overcoming things, but being present through the difficult times and cataloging that stuff and advancing through it, it allows us to be grateful for what we have. And, and not spend a lot of time wanting for more. So really trying to be what I try to work at, and this isn't preaching because I'm far from perfect at it, is being pretty content with the here and now.
Yeah.
And, I had a great weekend. I played some music with my wife, went and had dinner with some friends in Malibu yesterday and went for a hike. And now I'm talking to a new friend about guitars. So, like, I have to look at this like a win.
Yeah, it could be a lot worse.
Well, no, we also have, we have a friend whose husband's in the hospital right now. Or just, you talk about Neil, like life is really hard. And I mean, and it's good to help shed light and shine light on that stuff. And we're doing those dates, the Lantern Tours, to raise awareness for refugees. And there's 70 million refugees on this planet. Yeah,
that's crazy, man.
And no one wakes up one morning and decides they don't want to have a roof over their head. And it shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
No, that's a very powerful thing you just said. Nobody wakes up in the morning and wants to be a refugee, man.
Yeah. And
you know what? Can I tell you something? My exposure to this is so limited because I made a choice about 35 years ago to not watch news at all, ever, period. Morning, night. The only news I get is bits and pieces on Facebook. And I don't even get a lot of that because I don't subscribe to any. So it's more of like people throw an article and I don't read them. I just like.
You might sleep better than I do.
That's why I did it, because it's, when I started studying self-help stuff, one of the things they talk about is whatever's in the, early in the morning and last thing in the day, that permeates your subconscious. And I'm like, man, I got enough shit up there that's self-imposed that I'm fucking trying to fix. I can't afford any more stuff that might damage it. So I just, so like I'm aware of this stuff with refugees because but it's like none of this makes any sense.
Well, but what intrigues me about it is, I think everybody, right now, especially with the keyboard warriors, people say things online that they would never
look you in the eye and say.
Right.
Yeah.
But I really have to believe most people want the same things. You want a roof over your head. You want some food in your belly. You want your kids to feel that. You want to love your family. Right. The idea that one party's provide that and the other won't is like, that's new. That's concocted.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I certainly have my beliefs, but I also I would love to be a galvanizing force in the world instead of a polarizing force. And you know, and I think, you know, that also the Amazon's burning, you know, it's like the fucking building is on fire.
That I saw.
You know, it's like I've done some inside work trying to better my life, but the next phase of that in any religion is it's service work. It's being of service to somebody else.
Totally.
And again, that should be a total nonpartisan issue. That's not like there. I don't want any trolls on this thing going blah 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 blah. That's like taking care of each other. That's not hippy dippy mumbo jumbo. That's you know, if you go to a city park, that's maintained by a city. That's socialism on some level. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. That's it. Yeah. Vote for who you want, but like we got to take care of each other. Yeah. And I mean, that's what I love about music. That's what I love about, you know, I can go see a show and be bummed out and walk out a happier person.
Oh yeah.
And I'm answering all these questions in a super long roundabout way.
No, it's all good, man. It's conversation we're having. This isn't like the SATs. Is it A, B, C, or D?
Right.
We're good.
But man, joyful stuff happens all the time, and it's by being aware that we're able to catalog and recognize it. And if we're not aware, there's no amount of cool things. Nothing's good enough. If you're not in a place where gratitude is, you know, at the tip of your tongue, or you're not looking for it, your antenna's not up, you're not going to find it. Yeah. Even when you're having a better week than the homeless guy, you know, you're not going to find it. And so I just want to try to remain grateful.
Yeah, I think that's really important, man. You have any hobbies or interests? What are you drinking, man? It looks so good. Is it just water in a bottle?
Topo Chico.
What is that, man? It's like every time it's like, I like that bottle. It's like an old school bottle. I'm like, what the hell is it?
Well, it's it seems like they Mexican fizzy water.
Oh, okay.
Really strong bubbles. You can leave one on the counter overnight, and they're still Topo Chico. Yeah, maybe they'll give us an endorsement deal.
There you go. The Masters.
Craig and I need Topo Chico.
Yeah.
Hashtag Topo Chico.
Yeah, there you go.
No, and it's permeated some cities and others not. You know, like we got to go to Whole Foods out here to get it, but like in Texas, like every Mexican market will have them.
Is it sugar water or just like club soda? Just water. Because I like that stuff. That's what I drink.
Well, I just stopped drinking sodas, like sugary sodas. I'll have like 4 Dr. Peppers a year.
Yeah.
You know, I got to fit into my shirts.
Oh, dude, you're in great shape. You kidding me? Do you work out? I mean, do you do cardio or whatever?
Walking. We went on a great hike last night. We used to start every day out at Runyon Canyon. But no, I try to do some yoga. Eleanor does it way better than me. And like she has some neck shoulder stuff from holding the violin all the time. So she has to do it on the road.
Oh yeah.
She's taught me some stuff. And I have similar posture stuff from just holding guitars low and, you know, carrying stuff through airports. I try, but I mean, and at 42, it's like, it's starting to hit me. Like you start to realize okay. You know, like my eyes have always been bad, and I just went to the eye doctor, and there's like a cataract forming on the right one. It's like,
oh wow,
my back hurts. And it's like, okay, yeah, so we'll take the turmeric and we'll make sure we walk. And, you know, I eat kind of the bad food on the road, so at home I try to eat mostly vegetarian. That way, so I can go out on the road and have a fried chicken and a milkshake, and not feel bad about it.
You have any hobbies outside of music? Guitars.
I'm looking at music. A lot of music here around me. I wish I could just take the computer and turn it around. You know, I do so much around music, and it's I did have a friend tell me something pretty profound in the last time we put a record out, or maybe it was on our second record, and I was pretty stressed about some of the business aspects of it. And he said, it's like, look, even though music is 98% of what you do, you know, playing shows, recording things, writing songs, buying guitars on eBay, it's still not who you are.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, I'm going to have to sit and vibe on this for a minute, because it didn't make sense, but it does. And it's like, I can do all this stuff. Like, we can go make this next record, and we're not guaranteed anything. We're not guaranteed a tour next year. We're not guaranteed everybody loving it and it making our sphere bigger. So I just try to, though I love all of this, I try to, I do help people in recovery, and I'll take time to do that, whether that's, working with others, grabbing a cup of coffee with someone else, being an active member of that community that I don't get to do as much when I'm on tour. So,
do you go to meetings when you're on the road?
Sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, sometimes it's not. Like, at the end of this last cycle with Steve, we left April 21st, got home September 2nd. And towards the end of that, It became, my job is to, even though we were lucky enough to have the opening slots, but I'm ultimately being paid to go be a member of Steve's band and kick ass for 2 hours. That's what I'm being paid out here. So then it just becomes like, I'm just going to listen to podcasts and take naps and not feel guilty about it.
Good for you.
I need to be rested to make that show pop. And that's what, and sharp for that, because that's what I'm being hired to do. So sometimes, like early in a tour, it's like, yeah, let's go shopping. Let's go. I'll get up at 7 a.m. and go to this meeting. And then later in the tour, it's like, man, I barely have a voice. My back hurts. I need to go sit in a bathtub.
No, it's good that it's good that you recognize that and cut yourself that slack, and like, it's really important that you do that, because some people can't. And they're like constantly, self-care is really important.
Well, it makes you a better member of an ensemble. Like, that's
better everything.
Yeah, and if that's what you're being hired to do, it's not just to like play the songs without making a mistake. It's to be like vibey and cool and someone pleasant to be around. And after 4 months on a bus, we all have our moments where, people, we want to be away from people, or people want to be away from us.
Sure. Totally get that, man.
So, so I don't know if I have a direct hobby, but outside of music, I do try to, work on things for self-care, whether it's meditating. We started doing that Headspace app last year. Oh yeah,
a lot of people have done that.
Guided meditation, and it's great. Take 10 minutes, take 20 minutes a night. And if something's bothering me, whether it's business-wise or whether it's on a session, like if I'm recording stuff at the house, I'll just get up and go take a walk and try to come back at it with clean ears. And
yeah, getting out of the environment is really a healthy thing to do. Sometimes just a walk around the block changes your entire perspective. Just healthier, man.
Sometimes I'll just listen to things on Audible, just rest my eyes and lay there. So music and self-care is kind of my world.
Chris, 2 more questions.
Sure.
And I can't thank you enough for your time and patience. Toughest decision you've had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
I think that comes when you leave gigs and take other gigs, or, try to navigate these waters. But again, it's no different than anyone that has, their own business. You just try to, be a man of your word and keep that intact. And there should be an honor in that. If you say yes to something, do it and do it well. But, I've left gigs to do other things. Like when I left Jack Ingram's gig to join Slinvolt, it was like, it was time, and it was an opportunity I wanted to take, chance I wanted to take. But, like calling someone like that and, like leaving, but trying to leave on good terms.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like, mean what you say what you mean, and don't say it mean.
I like that. I've never heard that last one. Mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. I like that.
And I heard that from a friend of mine, and it's like, sometimes we do have to make hard decisions, and you realize that anytime someone, tells that they're not taking that lightly either, you know. So sometimes, you know, we're all arty types who are sensitive, you know. So I don't know that one, you know, I'd say definitely when I was hitting bottom with drugs and alcohol, that was pretty fucking tough and pretty, no one ever goes into their like first AA meeting doing somersaults, you know. People are usually pretty beat up. But
you know, do you happen to know Kelly Lemieux by any chance?
I don't.
He's a bass player for Buck Cherry. He got sober and he said, you know, he said something like, you know, AA is not the fucking Glee Club.
Well, it's not, but it's funny, but we also get our lives back and we actually do get pretty funny again. I mean, I'm a cut up on a session. Like,
no, but he meant what you just said.
Fun, you know,
no, he meant like what you just said. Like you're going to AA day one. It's not like, you know.
Oh, right, day one.
I can't wait to get in there.
But actually, like day one. But it's funny. But then you see the people that have been there for a while, and they're actually they're productive members of societies that, you know, and they are laughing because I remember going into one like, why is everyone so fucking happy? What's
the secret?
But it was a little dark when I went in. Like I knew I was doing something I needed to do for my life, but I wasn't feeling creative at all. And mind you, I paid my bills by playing bar gigs and little sessions. I wasn't doing anything super notable at that point in my life, but enough to keep the lights on. And I did not want to touch my guitar for the first couple months. And it was just a total leap of faith. On one hand, I felt I was doing something that was going to save my life, but then I was like looking at my Telecaster like it was, you know, steamed Brussels sprouts or something. And so it took a while for that, you know, I mean, not months, not years, for that passion to come back. I mean, now I have the excitement of a child around guitar.
Sure.
But not, you know, the first weeks and months, it was like, well, I guess I have to go play this gig. I sure don't feel like it.
Yeah. I think that's normal. Anything you do over a period of time.
I guess that would be a dark moment.
Yeah. Last question. Biggest change in your personality, Chris, over the last, let's say 10 years, and how much of that, let's go 5 years because you're 42. And how much of that's been deliberate or intentional, and how much has just been a natural part of aging?
Well, one big change was, you know, going back 10 years, when Eleanor and I started the band, that was a big delineation from side work to band leader. You know, even though I had a good work ethic, if you hired me for a gig, I'd know the songs inside and out. I would be dressed for the gig on time. Like I've had that for a long time. But when I started realizing how much it took to run a band like a business and keep that on the road, that did change a lot. And I don't know. And then, you know, what I think what sort of dictates life now is as we get older, we lose people.
Yeah.
You know, when I lost my dad, that's something that knocks you down a peg, and you don't necessarily get to get back on that peg. You just learn to accept the peg you're on. But it happens. But then when you lose other people, it kind of brings that back, you know, like I think 30s to 40s is when people start to, you know, feel, you know, loss like that. Or you see people that have sick kids, and, you know, you realize that life is fragile. And it was after sobering up where I became politically active, you know, so that's, you know, 20 some odd years in the making, but, you know, I didn't give a shit about anything before, you know, that, you know, you could hand me a cup of coffee and a cigarette or a beer and a guitar, and I was, you know, I was like a Flintstone. It was pretty simple, you know? So I think things are more complex now, but, I don't know. You just, you know, I take better care of myself, but it's made me want to take better care of my immediate friends and family and the space I inhabit as a citizen of the world, you know?
I like what you just said. You said something about, but you could life throws you stuff, but you're better equipped to handle it. And I think that's important, man. Having better coping skills.
Yeah, but then it all comes down to, you know, do I give more than I take? And that can be asked on a session, or that could be asked at the end of a day on how I got through whatever it is, you know.
Well, I'm pretty comfortable or confident that you're giving more than you're taking, man. So
some days are better than others
for all of us. Chris, thank you for everything. Let me just tell people some of the stuff you got going. When is the Lantern Tour starting?
Those are 2 dates. Those are November 5th and 6th in Washington, D.C. and in New York.
Where is it going to be, like a webpage, the Lantern Tour?
All that information will be up on our Instagram.
Okay. What's your Instagram?
At the Mastersons.
Great. At the Mastersons. So check out, if you're in DC or New York, or you're not far away, November 5th and 6th, the climate is, that's a great time of the year to be in either of those places, actually.
Yeah, I love fall on the East Coast.
Check out at the Mastersons on Instagram for the Lantern Tour. What's else? The Mastersons Music. If you are interested in hiring either Chris or Eleanor for sessions or for writing, there's a contact tab on their webpage. It's themastersonsmusic.com. Please be respectful of both of their times, get to the point, and, you know, as the same courtesy you'd want for yourself. The new Tanya Tucker record, is that out?
That's out. It came out on the 23rd. So that's awesome. I hope it, does well. Funny, we were all in the control room, and we took a pact. Said if it goes number one, we're all getting tattoos. And for most of us, it was Shooter and Brandy and the twins, Phil and Tim Hanseroth, who are both fabulous players. We all have tattoos, so it wasn't a big deal. But Eleanor doesn't have any tattoos, so I think it'll be really fucking funny if it goes number one.
And she's got to get a tattoo. You know, yeah. I don't have any tattoos, and both I have 3 kids. My 2 are older sons, and they're like, they keep begging me. They want to all get matching tattoos, which is really nice, but they want to get tattoos of the Foo Fighters logo on their neck. And I'm like, dude, I'm just not, I love the Foos, but I'm not feeling that as like my one tattoo that I have with my guys. So I gotta, you know, I gotta get something.
It's cool they want to do that together. I get that symbolically.
Oh yeah, right. Well, let's just pick another tattoo. That's what I got to work on that with them. And also the new Master.
Some kind of family crest.
It's something like even like a music, a clef, a G clef or something, or some notes, or the new Mastersons album coming out spring 2020. As I said, please, you're more than welcome to come back on here. I'd love to talk about the record. We could do a shorter show to promote it. Please, the door's open for that.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, man. We'll bring Eleanor on.
That'd be fantastic. That'd be wonderful, man. That'd be really cool.
Look, your YouTube views, like you looked at my mug for an hour or whatever, like it would be a lot cooler with Eleanor here.
I feel the same way about my wife, believe me. And anything else that you want to tell people what you got going on or coming up?
Man, we're here. We're just kind of we'll make another Steve Earle record in the winter, so he'll have something out next year too, and we'll see you out on the road somewhere.
Awesome.
Keep playing and have fun.
Thank you, man.
We're supposed to make a joyous noise. That's one way music is described. Have fun.
I agree. Thanks for everything, Chris. You're really a true professional. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being so open and for sharing everything, man. It was really kind of you. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Make sure you support the Mastersons. If you're not familiar with Chris's playing, he's a great player, man. And his wife, Eleanor, is extremely talented herself. So check out their music, whether it's with Steve Earle on the road, the Mastersons, and the Lantern Tour, November 5th and 6th. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on my newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Chris, thank you for everything, bro.
Thanks, man.